Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's live tech talk. What keeps MSPs up at night? Addressing key risks and building resilience. This event was organized by the hardworking folks at Redmond Channel Partner, and it's sponsored by Syncro, provider of an all-in-one professional services automation, remote monitoring and management, and remote support solution designed to help MSPs streamline operations, run their businesses effectively and efficiently, and provide their customers with world-class IT service. I'm John K. Waters, Editor-in-Chief of the Converge 360 Group of 11 to 5 Media, and I'll be your moderator for what promises to be an informative, information-packed, action-packed conversation with an amazing panel that includes Jeff Putnam, owner of PC Wizard, Janice Mallman, CEO / CIO of August eTech, and Gordon Hines, Network Architect at Network Zoo. Hi, guys.
Morning.
Hey, John.
No.
We have a lot to get to in this next hour, but before we do, I need to do just a bit of housekeeping. This Tech Talk is being recorded for later access. Keep an eye out for an email with a link to that recording. It'll be coming your way in the next few days. Our sponsor has provided some extra resources you definitely won't want to miss. They're available now on your console. And at the end of this conversation, we'll have a 5 to 10 minute Q&A. Please type your questions into the Q&A box. As they occur to you, we'll do our best to get to all of them. Now let's meet our panel. Let's start with who do we want to start with? Let's start with Jeff. Sorry, guys. Jeff, tell us a bit about yourself and your company.
Sure. My name is Jeff Putnam with PC Wizard. We've been in business for 28 years. We have 4 technicians here. Started the company as I graduated high school. We service a lot of small businesses, most companies up to about 150, 200 employees. We have about a 2-hour radius of the Northwest Hills in Connecticut. Obviously, we're an MSP, we'll go anywhere, but generally speaking, our customer set's within 2 hours of us. It's been a wild ride. We have a lot of niche customers in various verticals. We have construction, manufacturing, veterinary, and you name it, we've got somebody. So it's been a very interesting process over the last 28 years, and happy to be here and share some experiences with the group. Thanks for your time today.
Welcome. Janice, your turn. Tell us about yourself and your company.
Sure. My name is Janice Mallman, founder and CEO of August eTech. We are located in central New Jersey, and we predominantly do the New Jersey, New York, PA area, though we do have international clients in Europe and Asia, and we have, in the last 12 years, we have fallen into a great specialty, which is the life science industries and the compliance for life science industries. So we work a lot with pharmaceuticals and biotech companies to make sure that compliance and QA needs are met.
Awesome. Gord, tell us about yourself and your company.
Well, I'm Gord, obviously. I've been doing this since I was out of school, so 2008. Network Zoo was founded and incorporated in 2018, but we started working in about 2013 or so, doing stuff as a partnership. Like Jeff, we have a lot of different verticals and a lot of different clients. We, though, are on the other side of the continent from everybody else in this, I'm pretty sure. We're in Kelowna, BC, so we're in the Okanagan Valley with all of the fruits and the wonderful views that are here. So I'm still in the morning time. I'm not quite awake yet. I apologize for that. I don't know, we're in a bit of transition this year. We had a very large client forced close in the summer, so we're kind of pivoting and making some changes to our company, and that's part of what keeps me up at night. So there you go.
Well, welcome all. As you guys all know, managed service providers are navigating complex and ever-changing environment full of challenges and that demand what I would call strategic action. I'm talking about everything from cybersecurity threats and compliance risks to operational inefficiencies and economic pressures. And, attendees, we are going to dig into those challenges today with this amazing panel of MSPs. Let me just start with a sort of a core question. What are the biggest threats MSPs face today? Shall we go ahead and start with Jeff?
Sure. It's funny, Gord just touched on one. And there's a lot of things to keep MSPs up at night, a lot of threats, but some of them are just a lot of consolidation and acquisitions going on. Mm-hmm. You see your customer set, and you've done nothing wrong, right? You've done zero wrong. You've serviced them 110% the whole way, have a great relationship, and they're just gone one day through no fault of your own. So that's with all the really large companies buying the small companies, we've seen a lot of that in our area. Certainly that's a risk to MSPs, and there's the obvious security ones. Users doing things they shouldn't be doing. Does the technology service the customer's needs? I mean, there's so many different things that I'm sure all of us here on the panel will explore, but keeping people up at night are those, on my side, acquisitions and mergers is one of the larger ones.
Janice, what do you see as the biggest threats MSPs are facing today?
Yeah, I think part of it is, if I look at it more of in the MSP line and working with clients, I think a lot of it is shadow IT, and that is a lot of you're doing the best by your customers, your clients. You're putting in all the security that needs to be done, and then you've got someone who's like, oh hey, there's this new AI tool. There's this other tool. I like Google Worksheets rather than Microsoft Excel or whatever. And so it's dealing with a lot of shadow IT. And then just, with that shadow IT creates an even bigger burden when it comes to security in general, because we all know that, you could build a 6-foot wall, they'll build a 7-foot ladder to get over it, and they'll have the end users to help you get over it on the other end, because they're clicking on that ransomware. So it's that constantly keeping up and making sure you're doing right by your clients and keeping everybody informed and educating your customers.
Gord?
For us being in a smaller community and in where we are, I mean, the mergers and acquisitions is probably less of a thing for us here. I think our biggest thing is trying to make our clients understand that ransomware and what happens around those events is a lot more important to protect against than they'd want to think. I mean, our clients don't have a choice anymore. We don't give them an option to not be protected with like MDR products, but a lot of the discussions that we have with current and coming on clients is, why do I need that? Why do I need to spend that $15-20 a month on every workstation to make sure they're protected? Well, what does it cost you to be offline for a day? Well, I don't know, we could redo all of the transactions for yesterday, it would take a day or two work, but it's not a big deal. Well, but how is that not a big deal? I mean, I have a colleague here in the Valley, it's like 5 or 6 years ago. His client got ransomware. They were a 35-person law firm. They were down for a week while backups were being restored. And if 6 lawyers at $300 or $400 an hour plus all their support staff are not doing anything and they're being sent home, like, how much money are you losing? And why are you not thinking about that to protect yourself? So I think that's our biggest challenge. But I think it's something that you can, as long as you know what you're talking about when you talk to clients, it's really something that you should be able to inform them, and they should make that the quote unquote right decision to be protected that way. But that's kind of my thoughts.
So I was also wondering how you guys are leveraging technology to improve efficiency and reduce risk in an MSP operation. Maybe Janice, could you take this one?
Sure. I think one of the things that is key for us, especially when it comes to security, is we do a lot where we lock out computers from systems using a MAC address to identify the computer. And we have we're on right now we're in the prototype that we're working with Syncro MSP on their network mapping tool, on their inventory network tool. And we really like that, because we use that to build up our inventory so we could see everything, the firewalls, the printers, the switches, so on and so forth. And we help to use that as we're implementing these lockdowns of computer systems by MAC addresses on the hardware. So I would say that's one way of using it. The other way is we personally, just with Syncro again, is just to say we love their worksheets, and we really use it as a good check mark when our help desk is working with clients, that we know that we have a certain number of list items that we need to go through when we're dealing with certain questions, and being able to use that along with some canned responses to get some additional information. So we don't always have to type in, how many computers are down, or what's the exact error message? We have a lot of canned responses that we utilize. And I think that helps to automate the processes, and it just helps to give us more information in general.
Gord, your company is quite a bit smaller than Janice's. How do you leverage tech to, to improve efficiencies and reduce risk in your operation?
Well, I think for us, when we brought Syncro on, I think it was October or November of 2020, maybe 21, but I think it was 2020. I was at that point where it was just me on the tech side, and my wife was managing the admin side, and it was working fine. But when we got out of where we were and got into Syncro, with the tools that it provided and the scripting that it allows me to do, I was able to cut out like 40% of my work stuff day to day, which allowed me to be better focused on being, providing the security, and better focused on being able to grow the business. And so here we are 5 years later. Now, we're not really any bigger. We're a little bit bigger, but not really because of that client closure last year. But it's given me the ability to learn all of those things that make you more efficient, so that when I go to push more business, I can do that without being worried about having enough tech knowledge in the background, because so much of what we do is done through scripts now.
I love that automation myself, Gord. We use a lot of that automation in Syncro for when something comes in that doesn't require a technician to do the first few steps. Go pull the blue screen of death dump log, go pull the disk space condition, the little things, the prevent the problem before there is one stuff. When we use Syncro's automation to just pull us the information, so when an actual person stares at it, they don't have to go anywhere else. Syncro's already presented all of the information to us, so somebody can make a reasonably reliable decision on what to do, with just the information in front of them.
We've even pulled in all of our backup reports for all of our clients, and we have automations just to close tickets automatically when the backups are successful, and when they're not, they become a live ticket that we have to look at and go deal with. And it may not be like the most efficient way of doing things necessarily, but it's a lot better than staring at backup emails in a folder. You know what I mean? Like at least you filter out the noise you don't need to look at, and that's kind of important.
Which tends to take the time away from you during the day, and you start to not look at them. I mean, everybody in their profession wants to do the best job they can, but when there's 600 emails staring at you at once, and you're looking for 4 failures, I mean, we're very lucky that we don't have a whole lot of failures. Most of the stuff has been in use so long now that it kind of just works like clockwork, and you're still watching it for issues. But those automations and not having to stare at, as you called it, the garbage, right, is a huge time saver.
So we were talking before we went on, and you guys were giving me a little bit of the histories of your company, and you guys have been at this a long time. So I don't think it's too early in this conversation to ask for some advice. How can MSPs build stronger cybersecurity strategies to protect both their businesses and their clients? Maybe let's start with Janice. The ladies first.
Oh, thank you. So my company has been around 23 years. And how you build cybersecurity strategies. I think, for me, the cybersecurity strategy is a little bit about what I've been saying is, you got to be proactive in everything. You've got to go the next step. We are actually, we've brought on a SIM. We're actually moving into the MSSP area. We're going to be launching a new website on that. And MSSP is just basically managed security services provider. And that's really, the next realm of things. One of the big things about growing your client base and keeping your client base, to me, is always going the next step, doing the next thing that makes it that makes you stronger. And it's also another service that you can give to somebody, but it has to be an important service. It can't just be anything. So that's what I've been evolving over the last, probably 10 years, is more and more into cybersecurity, without wanting to be a cybersecurity firm, because that's a whole different animal. They do pen testing and they do, vulnerability scanning and all that. What we want to do is we want to make sure our clients are as secure as possible. And like I said, we try to build that 6-foot wall, hoping that, they don't build another 7-foot ladder.
Jeff, you've been at this since, I think, before you could drink.
Yeah, absolutely. 28 years. I was 18.
So the same question, how can MSPs build stronger cybersecurity strategies to protect both their businesses and their clients?
Well, you have to really look at it as you have the right people too, right? So do you have the right people on your team to help support that initiative? Do you have the smart people who are working well together as a team to protect not only yourselves and the customer? Because let's face it, the MSP is a target too. We have access to, all of these different customers. I mean, if you are looking to take aim, obviously you have to think of all of those vectors, right? So is it the MSP themselves? Are we secured properly? Have we done the right by our customers? And have the customers done right by themselves, right? I mean, how often do you get, as Gord and Janice have mentioned, a cybersecurity audit for insurance comes down through and the customer shows it to you and you look at the answers they've written and go, you can't do that. That's not necessarily true. And
you have clients that answer those. I get them in the PDF saying, can you fill this out for me? I'm
exactly.
like, I don't know your business that well. I'll fill it when I can.
I get them. And sometimes you get them half fill it, or they'll send me what they sent in last year. And you look at it and go, no. You have a good conversation about it, but how do you get those customers? I mean, some of the challenges for us is how do you get the customers to understand what they really need and why? I think somebody touched upon it a few minutes ago, but how do you reinforce that, hey, this is not only to protect us and you, it's to protect your customers too, right? Sometimes people forget about that downhill slope, right? So when that dental office or manufacturing firm gets compromised, it's a headache beyond just them. It's for all their customers. And what's the risk to their business by not being able to function? Yes, if you're a dental office and you know who's coming in the next day, you can probably make it through, but you don't have all of their records. You don't have any of that stuff at your fingertips that the world is so used to, right? Instant gratification. And when you don't have that anymore, people, I think, sometimes forget the value of it until it's gone. And that's hard. Your job is to protect everybody from those things. And that's not always easy for an organization to do.
Exactly.
Gord, what's your advice?
Well, being that actually I am the smallest company in this little chat here. My biggest thing for having the right strategies is to find the right partnerships with the right vendors that can actually help you. So like for us, we have our go-to vendors for all of our hardware, all of our software, all of our security software, all of everything. And that's just how we've always done it. And I think having that relationship with those guys, I mean, I can drive to Vancouver, which for me is like a 4-hour drive. So let's be fair, it's not right next door, but I can go down there any day of the week, show up at the office, find the guys I need to talk to, and make those conversations happen if we have to. And the nice side of that is that I'm a very social person, if you hadn't figured that out yet. And there tends to be a lot of social time when I go down there too. So it's not just a transactional relationship for me. And that is the same for all of our vendors, whether it be the security side or the server side or the workstations really is just transactional, but everything else has a social or at least a relationship aspect to it. I think that's really important because if you have that relationship, then you can you can form more trust from them to you and from you to them. And that's also important because, we need to have allies on our side in this industry because it's very difficult to stay on the cutting edge. It's very easy to fall behind on things. And when you fall behind is when you start to suffer.
Okay, let's talk about money. Janice, what steps can MSPs take to strengthen their financial stability and long-term growth?
So there's lots of ways to doing it. I'm not one who takes out a lot of loans. Our company has almost zero debt, and I do that intentionally. I have a line of credit. That's our biggest debt that we have, but it's very small. I think that's really a key to long-term growth because there's two philosophies. Is you can take out all those loans. You buy a lot of, you buy other MSPs or you buy out a lot of things, and then you put a lot of debt on your books, and then you figure your ROI is that, the new business is going to help you pay down that cost. I'm quite the opposite. I'm like, I keep my costs low. I want to reinvest in the company so August eTech, and I want to reinvest particularly in my employees so that we could give the best support to our clients and use our client base as a way to grow our business. I think the employees is the key. Being small businesses, even though I'm larger than the other two guys, I'm still a small business. I'm not going to be able to pay as much as, somebody who has 300, employees. And the key is to make sure that you are setting your company up for success and not for failure. And I think I mentioned this before. One of the things that I do is my employees have 5 weeks of vacation. And I do that because if I can't pay them at the 100%, like if they look, especially in the New York City area, if they look and go, well, I could go to New York City and get XXX. And I'm like, okay, but they're probably going to give you 2 weeks vacation, maybe 3. I'm creating a culture in an atmosphere where everybody has a work-life balance. And I'm hoping that the high percentage that I can pay them, that's maybe not as high as New York City, along with these other benefits, is something that, helps to grow the business.
5 weeks. Wow. You sound Swedish.
And just to say, I just want to add on, I don't want to take away from anybody else, just really quickly to add on.
Sure.
Taking care of your employees does help 100% because I have had employees come to me and give me business from places that they've gone to. Like they've gone into work for a company and they go, you need August eTech to come in, or they know somebody and they passed on my name. So I am so proud to be able to say that I have old employees over this 23 years that come back to me and give me business. And that says something is being done right.
It sure does. So Jeff, what advice do you give to attendees as far as strengthening their financial stability and long-term growth?
Sure. I mean, much along Janice's line, in taking care of your folks internally, but you also have to focus on your customers, right? So those long-term relationships that you build are what bring you that long-term growth. At least in our case, we don't advertise. So we've been a very word-of-mouth growth process for the last 28 years. And, we've never burned a bridge in all the years. An acquisition comes through and the new IT company isn't as, we'll say, pleasant as you might be in the process of taking them over. You just never burn a bridge. We have had so many times where taking the high road and doing it right and maintaining those relationships brings you business many years later. These people from a company that gets acquired or unfortunately closes down, they go somewhere. So if you've handled yourself professionally, there's a lot of opportunity to those people. We don't pick up the phone and call them and say, where did you go? They call us and say, hey, I'm at a new place. Do you think you can help? Can I set up a meeting for you? I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there in just how you conduct your business. So on top of taking care of those super important people that help you be a success during the day in your own organization, you need to make sure that you have a great relationship with the people that you're servicing too. It sometimes isn't easy, but you also rely on those things. Look, no MSP on the planet can say that a mistake has never been made unless they started yesterday. I mean, it's going to happen. And those relationships are what you bank on for being able to get through a difficult time. You've done 10 years of great service for the customer. You've respected them and they understand your values. And when something bad happens, you come to them and tell them, hey, this is exactly what happened. Here's how we're handling it. And, here's how we're going to get better. And those relationships help keep that long-term success going, in my opinion.
Gord, do you have some advice?
Well, I mean, echo all of the same things that Janice and Jeff have both said. I mean, you have to take care of your people. You have to take care of your clients, and as Jeff said, long term are kind of the keys, right? I mean, we've had, though our company's only been around since really 2013-ish. I mean, we have a couple of clients that started with us as early as 2008. In my first 3 weeks of working in the industry, realistically, really working in the industry, like our one law firm. 20 minutes over my shoulder. They've been with us from the beginning, and Barry has supported me and our company in everything we've ever asked him to do. And I think the relationships are key, as Jeff said, right? I mean, I've had a couple of employees from clients leave and go elsewhere, and then they reach out because they need help. Or we've had, I remember, this is a number of years ago now, we set up a new client. It was a referral from somewhere, doesn't matter what it was. And about 3 weeks later, prior to us getting everything rolled out, because it was a slow process, one of the computers got ransomware. I mean, this is 2016. It really wasn't a huge issue. It was just a reinstall Windows and away we go. The person who's sitting at that desk was very irate, and she and I had it out. And I don't know how many of you guys noticed. I'm a very friendly person. I'm very happy all the time. I don't really get mad. That was one day where I did, and my voice was raised and hers was raised, and we yelled it out for 15 or 20 minutes. And you know what? From that point on, we've been best friends. She trusts me in everything I suggest. And that's the thing, is that you stick to your guns when you know what you're doing. And I think, like Janice said, keep your debt to a minimum if you can. I mean, I don't think we have a whole lot either. If we've got very little credit card debt for the company, and that's the only way you're really going to be successful, is if you don't owe. I mean, for you guys in the States, Uncle Sam; for us up here, I don't know, Maple Sam, whatever.
Well put, Gord.
Right? I mean, don't owe what you don't have to owe, and you'll find that you can grow a little bit easier and a little bit quicker.
Don't forget, sometimes they just come back, right? I mean, sometimes somebody departs you and realizes the grass is not always greener, and by they have relationships with the people have relationships with your employees, right? I mean, the people who work with you on your team develop these relationships too, so it's important that they have that same culture as the rest of us. But back to you, John. Yep. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I mean, I want to keep you talking on the next topic, which you mentioned that nobody can be in this business without making mistakes. So what are the most common mistakes that you've seen MSPs make, and what's your advice on how to avoid them?
Well, you see all kinds of mistakes, right? You have somebody didn't pay attention, or they didn't listen clearly enough to the customer, or really, we find this one, the customer tells you to do something, right? And they just send you an email into your ticketing system and say, I want you to do this, right? We've kind of joked about this before. Technician just goes and does it, or I go and do it, whoever goes and does it. And they didn't ask the very important question, what are you trying to do? And when you understand what somebody's trying to do, you've reduced the risk of a mistake significantly, because now somebody's giving you all of the information, rather than, hey, I want you to set up this new platform for these people to use. They're going to run this application. Well, what are you actually trying to do? Well, I've got some people who are working offshore on a second shift, and all the details finally come out, and you realize, guys, this is just going to be a waste of time. We should really structure this differently. And while it's not a mistake, somebody then says, well, you told us to do it. And nobody else realizes that besides the person that actually asked the question. So really understanding what somebody's trying to do is probably one of the simplest ways to avoid a critical mistake. And everybody in your team has to be focused on the details, right? In IT, details are everything.
Mm-hmm. Janice, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. I always tell my employees, never believe the client. Never believe the client. Ask them a lot more questions, find out exactly what they want, because when they insist, but you got to do it nicely, because you don't also want to say, I don't believe you. It's got to be like, ask more questions of them. Like it is what it's like. What's the goal? But I did want to go over a couple of items that I've seen on MSPs in general, and being in business for 23 years. Is I think I have 3 different areas. One is, I think MSPs, when you're starting out especially, tend to overextend themselves on their services. I remember I used to do web development. I used to do everything, and it was like, oh my God, I can't be an expert in everything. I've got to be an expert in what I'm an expert in, and my background is networking. And so I was like, I've got to be an expert in that. So I think that's a big thing, is figure out what you're an expert in and narrow down onto that. I know you're thinking, oh, but I'm losing money here and there, but you're really not, because you're not doing it as well because you're not an expert in that area. The other thing is break fix, doing things that are break fix. I hate to say it, but it's going to drain you in time, money, resources, and your client is never going to be happy, because they're going to say, why does this take 3 hours to fix? It should only take 1 hour to fix. I'm not going to pay for you for that other 2. I think you're trying to rip me off. So if you stick with we happen to do a fee per piece of equipment. We have fees per computers, we have fees per firewall switches. it's easier. You deal with that, and then you don't need their approval to work on things. You have built it into your budget already. And then the last thing I would say is cheap prices. I always tell clients I'm not the most expensive, but I'm not going to be the cheapest. And I have gone in. A great example of one of my clients that I went into. They asked me. They actually were a referral from a CRO from another client of mine, and they brought me in, and I gave them my proposal. And they looked at it and they said, "Wow, you're really expensive." And I said, "Well, I'm not the most expensive, but I'm not going to be the least expensive." I said, "You get what you pay for." And they were like, "Okay, well, we appreciate it." And they went with somebody else. And I said, "No issues, if you need anything, or if you just want to, talk, or if you just want, some feedback, that's fine." They came back a year later. "Can we hire you? We are in such a mess." Oh. And they have been my client now for 12 years. Oh, and good. Sometimes so don't be afraid when you go there and your price is not going to be the cheapest. Don't be afraid of it. They will see your value at some point, and they will come back. And it might not be a month, it might not be 6 months, it might not even be a year, but they will come back. And I think that's really important. And that's what I emphasize for all MSPs.
That's a great point, Janice. Do what you do well, right, is important. Like you said, don't expand out to things that you're not. We don't do web design either. You have to be, be beyond well, be excellent at what you offer to your customers, for sure, 100%. And really, I mean, in this day and age, how can you feel comfortable offering services to a customer that you're not 100% confident inside and out, right? I mean, that's you. And as far as being the cheapest, I mean, there's a value to. We've all been in business, a fair number of years. All of us over 10 years, and with that, we shouldn't be the cheapest. We have a level of knowledge and the knowledge of a customer. When a customer comes to us after 15 years, right? There's nobody who can come in, step foot in the very next day and provide the same level of service. Look, we can all be replaced. But the knowledge that we have in organizational knowledge, I have customers who call us and ask us about things that are totally unrelated to what we would consider day-to-day MSP stuff, because we have a good relationship and you have that respect for each other and their opinions. Exactly. And that not just any company can roll in, charge 25% less and be better at that. So there'll always be somebody, to all of you MSPs out there, who will undercut you on price. You have to build up, as Janice says, what is that value that you bring, and the relationship and the just your overall rapport with a customer. It's worth something in the end.
I'll chime in on a couple things. So going back about 5 minutes, Dennis, you said don't try and be an expert in everything. Just try and pick your poison. I've kind of lived by a mantra in the last 6 or 7 years, where do what you trained to do what you went to school for, and pay everybody else, because your time is more valuable than you think. So prioritize that. Secondly, on Jeff's comment just now, which I've now completely forgotten. Anyway, it was a good one, and I've forgotten.
Well, the price, the value. You don't be the cheapest.
Don't be the cheapest. So it was along that line, and it was around the whole 15 years coming back. When you go into a client, and here it is. It just took a minute. When you go into a client, you got to try your best as someone who's small. Like, I'm really small. There's 2 of us that work the tech in this company. There's not a lot of us. We still support 500 endpoints, so we're still doing okay. What you need to do as a small or emerging MSP is, when you go into a client, go in with the plan. Well, first bump your rates by 20%, because you're probably 20% low. And I've learned that because my wife did it for me for 5 years. And I realized, hey, she's actually right. We are taking that 20% longer to do these things, even though I know I can do it in my brain that fast. It doesn't work that fast. That's one. And 2, is try and exude confidence, even if you don't feel totally confident. Like the whole fake it till you make it, to a point, it actually has real benefit. You have to show that you know what you're doing, even if you don't necessarily know every part of what you're doing, because it's really important that the client looks at you and goes, you know what, if this was my car, I would surely want you to fix it, because I feel like you know what you're talking about. That's kind of the thing.
So I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you guys, about AI. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's evolving at warp speed. But I'm really curious how this technology is, how you guys are viewing this technology. And, we've talked about it a little bit before, but what are your plans? You 3 different companies in a way. Maybe start with Jeff. What do you think? What's your AI strategy?
Sure, we have 2 really. We have an internal AI strategy and an AI strategy for the customers, because ultimately, I mean, while AI is not, I wouldn't call it huge in our space yet, and it's a big yet, right? Internally, you can use it for a lot of triage of tickets. The Syncro has got a built-in AI that attempts to answer some of the questions on tickets. But really, I mean, ChatGPT and all those different resources, when you want to write a script, our technicians are going to go look at it to get the framework. You can't just roll out into AI, tell it to build you a script and go run it. That's irresponsible and crazy.
And it doesn't work.
To look at it, and it doesn't work, right? But to get that framework of, hey, this is where I should start, validate everything, and move forward. So we do a lot of that AI stuff internally. But really, we're starting to focus on looking ahead 5 years, right? Or even 3. What can AI do for our customers? Because as a technology company, you have to be looking ahead, always forward thinking, and always thinking, well, how are we going to not let AI put us out of business? And that's not, I mean, a legitimate concern that AI is going to put all of MSPs out of business. But if an MSP ignores AI and it becomes a large scale thing, you have to be able to help your customers through that and help them be a better business themselves. And that's how we tend to look at things. How should we be focusing to help them use AI and how they'll use that in their businesses? Because that's the question they're going to ask us.
Yep.
Janice, where are you on your AI journey?
So actually, I'm going to go into a different area of AI. I mean, I will follow up with Jeff of it's you have an internal and then you have an external. Internal is not really major for us, but what I am doing now, like I said, we have a lot of life science, bio science companies, pharmaceuticals that we work with that have to go do a lot with FDA compliance. So one of the things that actually have come up in the last couple of weeks is we help them, we help them develop IT security policies. And so now it's going in and it's redoing those policies to include AI. And having the discussions with the C-level people on AI is everybody wants them to be able to utilize, because there's 2 different AIs. You have your ChatGPT, your open AIs that you could go to and you could either pay for or you could a free version. And then you also have the AIs that's built into software. You've got Copilot and Microsoft and all your other different products. Salesforce has something, so on and so forth. So it's almost inevitable. You can't block it out of everything. So it's creating guidelines on how to utilize it. And that's what I'm finding is really big with my clients in that particular area. Not to say that the other organizations and companies aren't requiring it also, but it's really important in these because these have to have certain compliances. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of. How do we create a structure on how to utilize AI so you're not putting in your company's proprietary information and saying, hey, I've got this, patent. Could you tell me how to write, a patent, application or something like that? And now you just gave away the keys to the kingdom. So that's what I see a lot in my side.
I can't say that I ever thought of that one, Janice. I can't say that I ever thought of putting the information in the world being taken over by, an idea that you may have had for a patent. That's an interesting take on it. I appreciate that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then for us, like, again, because we're so small and we don't, I would say our AI is still in its infancy in how we want to approach it. I mean, I will pull some scripts from one and feed it to the other and see what they say and compare them, and then I'll run it against some test environments to make sure that nothing. You just got to be smart about how you want to leverage it. And what I find really interesting is across our clients of, say, around 100 clients that we have, I don't think I have a single person in a single client ask us about anything to do with AI. I know they're using it. I'm well aware they're using it, but they're not asking questions. And most of it's like Copilot. I mean, we got one client for sure that's using Copilot.
Mm-hmm.
I know she is, but she's doing it for another business that she's also working for. So it doesn't affect us directly. I think it's inevitable that it's going to be a thing in our industries. And I think kind of like I had So quick story, little, very short, I promise. About 15 years ago, 17 years ago, I had an interview with a guy who wanted to pull me out of where I was working before I started this company. We sat down for lunch. We had Thai food. It was very good. And he said, the future is coming and you can see our jobs fading away. And I said, why? And it was right around the time Windows 8 came out and you could hit the reset button and would reset your computer to factory settings. And he's like, this is going to revolutionize and people are going to do it themselves and we're not going to be around anymore. I'm like, what person, what client can you think of anywhere that can do their own IT work? I mean, really do it. That's not a thing. And here we are 17 years later and I'm still, we're still responsible for making sure all the computers work for clients, because I've found that they're actually less technically inclined now than they were 15 years ago.
100%.
We do so much more tech stuff, but they understand it less and less and less. Wild.
Okay, Gord, if you could give one piece of advice to an MSP looking to scale and secure their operations, what would it be? I know you're a little guy, but
Yeah, no, but I mean, I went through this scale process. I mean, I was thrown to the wolves when our biggest client came on a few years ago. So my biggest advice is just have everything pre-ready. Like build out the things as if you were 10 times the size you are now. Because if you do that and you build those scripts, you build those policies, you build those ideas and those plans, when something big falls in your lap, you're able to take it on and understand that you'll understand what you're taking on. When we did our first one in 2021, it was a 40-hour period between the first phone call and a signed contract for a lot of money to manage for them. Now, sadly, that's the company that closed this last summer, so yay me. But I mean, I was thrown to the wolves. I had 2.5 weeks to take over for an IT manager who had been in place for 25 years. And that was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. But now that I've done it and I've gone through that process, I know so much more about how things have to operate in bigger businesses and how things can change and how slow that change can be. It is like a Titanic sometimes. So I think, just circling back on the answer, is be prepared now. Pretend that you are 10 times the size you are now, have all those policies ready, and you're kind of ready.
Janice, you're kind of the big fish here. What one piece of advice could you give an MSP looking to scale and secure their operations?
Business relationships, keeping up with relationships. I know there's a lot of, networking events, go to networking, just make contact with people. And don't assume that someone's trying to sell you something that you're like, oh, they're not really going to help me. They just want to sell me something. And the reason, and I'll give you a quick little example, is I had someone, I had to put in a bid for a client and I got him. And one of the competing companies that put in a bid for part of the project, not the whole project like I did, kept emailing me and saying they wanted to have lunch with me. We got to have lunch. We got to have lunch. We can work together. And I'm thinking, you just want to sell me your product. I get it. I blew them off 2 or 3 times. This was 12 years ago, 13 years ago, actually. And so I finally was like, he was like, I'm in the area. I know you're at the client. Can we have lunch? I was like, fine, okay. So I go and I figured, okay, let me go. He ended up that he was creating a startup and he wanted to bring all these different companies in. And he's like, I want to bring in your company. And I said, okay. He got me into a pharmaceutical company, which was my first life sciences company, which started a whole new industry for me back 12 years ago plus now. And so you just never know. I always say that was that one, from him, I have made a ton of money on just that one client, that first client that he got me. He has since gone out of business because he didn't listen to me and he didn't pay himself enough. So he went out of business. But you don't know when somebody keeps trying to sell you something, have a conversation. You just never know where it's going to go.
Yep, true.
I like that one, Janice. Open all the doors, right? You never know what's on the other side. And it may be a 15-minute waste of your time on a sales call or a meeting, but it might
maybe 2 hours.
Might bring you something. Yeah, it could be 2 hours, right? You just never know. On our side, you guys have added, so much, there's very little left for me to add to this, but I would say also in scaling, we have had a big push for documentation so that when somebody new jumps on board and starts, the structure is there for them to be successful, right? You want to have somebody, when somebody starts, at least have the infrastructure and the documentation for the customer and the procedures. And look, I'm sure we all have things we'd love to add to our documentation stack to serve our customers better and better as time goes on. But it's an important piece. I mean, having everything together, and like Gord says, be ready to be 10 times your size. I'm not ready to be 10 times my size yet. That would put us as bigger than Janice. But it's a nice slow growth path, and try and be ready for it, and open all the doors, Janice. I think that's a great advice for all the MSPs out there.
I would say even prepare yourself so that during the day you're busy from start to finish. If that's 10 times, cool. If that's double, then cool. Whatever that is, but just be prepared that when you get to that next step, that your day to day is going to be filled with something from the time you open your computer, laptop, get to your desk, like in my case, until the time you go home. And if you're prepared for that, knowing that you have other things that you're committed to outside of those day-to-day operations, find a way to make those day-to-day operations that are time suckers that aren't necessarily going to be client facing, make sure those are buttoned down. If you can get that button and ready to go, then you're ready. And I think that's maybe where the 10 times comes in, because it's not, maybe not fair to say, but that's the idea.
And don't assume who's going to bring you business and who's not. I mean, some of the people who brought me the most business, HR. I had an HR person who owned her own HR company. She's brought me a ton of business because she does their HR, and then she goes, well, what's your IT? I had a commercial office broker who brings me a lot of business because they have businesses that are either starting up or expanding, and they go, hey, do you need IT? I happen to know an IT company. So you just never know the type of relationship that's going to bring you new business. And the rest of these guys, I actually started some minimal advertising, but 95% of our company sales come in through referrals, and that's either partnerships, clients, or ex-employees.
We used to have a referral before we were really a true MSP, and it's so important, like you say, Janice. They would actually give our name out to customers, and they would say to them, look, I will pay your first bill if you're not happy. We are so confident in this person. We've had them for so long.
Nice.
If you get the first bill and you're not happy with them, you send it to me.
Nice. Yeah.
You can't ask for a better vote of support than somebody who's willing to put, as they say, their money where their mouth is, right? It was very flattering and good advice for all, right? Build those relationships and do good things with your time with people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all the questions I have. Shall we get some questions from our attendees?
Sure.
I want to remind everyone, you can type your questions into the Q&A box at any time. We'll do our best to get to all of them. Let's see what we've got here. Let's start with this one from Al, who's wondering, how do you decide which tools to use?
So I guess I'll roll first. Everybody else is quiet.
Sorry about that. I should have, yeah.
No, that's no problem. We test them. You look. I mean, we have a stack that we're very comfortable with now. We've used for a number of years. It doesn't mean that when something new comes out, we don't look at it. But a lot of times, we've actually built relationships with the vendors that we use, which has really helped us with those conversations. Kind of help aim the direction a product is going to go, or understand what direction it's going to go. So when you have good partners like Syncro, you have a seat at the table to talk about the different kinds of things that are going to happen. They're very receptive. We have other vendors too, who over the years, we started out when they were very small. They had a great product, but they had a lot more to do. And with those relationships, we've been able to help improve our stack with our own input. I mean, our team is on various panels and things that really help grow a product both for us and for the customers and for those vendors. It's actually been very useful to us. I don't know about the rest of you guys in picking, but I mean, short of a great product, being able to pick up the phone and call or drop an email to somebody and get an actual response is important. I mean, we looked at other RMM softwares that were way larger than we needed, and getting a phone call back or an email back was like, it's like a black hole. I won't say their names in the call, but Janice, you might.
I'll say it. Connect Live. It was a huge black hole. They started out as they're going to sell you, everything but the kitchen sink, and they're going to take care of you. And we were with them for, I think, 5 years. And by the 4th year, I was beating my head against the wall. I told my director of operations, we have got to find somebody else. This is just absolutely crazy. There is no support. And every time we ask them to do something, they want to charge us an arm and a leg. And that's how we came about to Syncro and doing some investigations in it. But tools in general is, you just find out what your need is. And it's a lot of getting a lot of demos, getting a lot of trials, looking into it and figuring out what's best.
And the pricing too, right, Janice? I mean, the pricing of it, you
Oh,
have
100%,
to be able to,
yeah.
you have to be able to bring a product that has the right capabilities to the customer to fit their needs without pricing yourself out,
100%.
right? I mean, there are some great tools that are 5% better than the others, and they're 8 times the costs.
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, 100%. And also make sure you're looking at it from a reseller point of view. You always want to be reselling this, because that's another way to increase your foothold with a client. Is if they're relying on you for every product and they're paying you for every product that they utilize, they don't separate as much, and you want to make sure that you're able to get every resale dollar and value out of it that you can.
Gord, do you want to weigh in?
I mean, it's kind of all been said, but I'm again, just because I'm the smallest guy here, my biggest things for the tools is to find stuff that makes sense for us based on who we are and how we operate. So I looked at a lot of different RMMs when we first were looking into Syncro, and a lot of them, and names are names, it doesn't really matter, but a lot of them are endpoint based because they probably include some antivirus stuff and whatever. I have a partnership with our security vendor that is great. I don't need to have your RMM bundled antivirus, and then nothing against Syncros. Like it's good, but we have one and we're going to use it. So for me, finding one that was tech based was important, because I could have 1,000 endpoints and still only pay for the number of techs that I'm paying in house. I don't need to, like, we did a comparison because Ninja approached me 7,000 times, and I said, okay, fine. Here's where we are on our number of endpoints. What is your cost going to be? And she came back $3,500. I said, okay, well, I'm paying $600 a month now. So I'm not sure where the $2,900 difference is going to be. So, like, how do we pick the tools? We pick the tools that are budget conscious for us and do the job well. They're not perfect. I will never say that anything is perfect. Syncro's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm sure Janice and Jeff will say the same thing. We're not. Nothing is perfect. But if it does the job you need it to do well, to the point where you can say it's good, then it's good. And like, I don't know, you can complain about things that you don't get. I see complaints about this platform and others all over the place, all over Reddit, all over the internet. It doesn't matter. But the thing is, the things that they don't do well shouldn't be the things you focus on. You should focus on the things they do well and find alternatives or solutions that can bridge the gap if what you're using isn't doing the job. And I mean, I don't know. My wife hates it when I say it, but it's not a big deal, because it's not a big deal. Find a solution. You're paid to be the solution provider for your clients. Find a solution. That's my biggest thing.
Okay, we've got one here from Paul, who's wondering, do talent shortages and retention in some critical IT/security roles keep some MSPs up at night? What do you think, Jeff?
Sure. I mean, we are not in New York City, as Janice mentioned before. There's a limited population of folks in our area. So having the right team together and keeping them together is a really important part of our business. I mean, we've had people here for 5, 8, 10 years, and it's important. That's our growth cycle, not the people necessarily left. We only have 4 people, 4 full-time folks, so we're not large, but having those people available and their continuing education and just having the right people and finding them is a difficult thing. I mean, the question that's been posed, yeah, I mean, does it keep us up at night? Of course. I mean, as you look at your growth plan and you want to have 5, 6, 7, or 25, as Janice, I mean, I don't know how, Janice, you found 25 people. I mean, you're in a different area than us, and I know that Gord's out in the middle of nowhere, so he might have a more interesting approach to this. But
I'm in the middle of a bunch of orchards, for the record. Not nowhere.
Well, unless your technicians are growing on trees, as they would say, right?
Well, that's true.
But no, I mean, the question being asked is absolutely true. I mean, you value the team you have, and you hope that you all manage to work together forever. But it is a difficult thing to look to expand and find qualified people who want to work and be a part of that team, because you have to get somebody who matches your culture, right? I mean, that's as important as anything else. That customer relationship, it always comes back to it. So, Gord, how about those technicians growing on trees out your way?
Well, I mean, you're right. They don't. I think for the way that our area is set up, I mean, set up's the wrong word, but there's like maybe 250,000 people within 2 hours. There's not a lot of businesses and a lot of opportunities for IT. So for us to fill the void isn't difficult from a like a talent level, I would say, because there isn't the stuff that Janice is doing here. Like that there's maybe 1 or 2 phytoceutical companies around here. They're like 20 employees. There's not a lot going on. I don't see. So is it hard to find talent that would replace someone like the 3 of us? Yes, but thankfully we're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. Is it hard to find someone that could do the level 1 tech jobs? I would say no, with the caveat being that because we are so small, is that I would lose a week or 2 worth of productivity because I have to train someone how to do the job, and then have to worry about whether or not they're going to stick around, because a lot of people will leave this area to go elsewhere because there's higher paying jobs in Calgary or higher paying jobs in Edmonton or Vancouver, or south of the border too, because I know that there is still that draw to go down to the US from up here in Canada. So is it hard? Does it keep me up at night? No, because I don't feel that we're in a position right now where any kind of growth would limit us our ability to do things. I think we have some slack time right now, so it's okay. And we have help in some clients. We have a couple of clients that are IT managers, and we are just sort of being the extra hands for them. So I think we're okay.
Janice, are worries about talent shortages keeping you up at night?
Yes and no. I think when we were smaller, it was, but we've been able, when you get to a certain size, you're able to bring in. We have brought in a lot of college interns, and we bring them in not just for the summer, but for the whole year. So it's all different times of year. Sometimes we rotate them when we have them for 4 months, and we have them, go out depending on how they are. We have moved, I think 4 college interns into full-time employees because they have been so exceptional, and they've caught on, and they have that talent. And you're not going to know unless you bring them in as an intern to really do it. The non-intern route, and looking for good people, it's hard. There's a lot of people that put stuff on their resume that they know the bells and the whistles, and then, I don't do the first set of interviews, but I'll hear from my director of operations. He's like, this guy, he's got this and this and this, and then I talk to him and he doesn't even know what it is. So there's a lot of weeding that out. But we have learned that, interns have been just, I think a blessing for us that, we've been able to have them and grow them and make them part of the company.
Okay, looks like we've got time for one more question. This one is from Mark, who's wondering, how are MSPs managing the Broadcom acquisition of VMware and their huge increase in licensing and support? It looks
did somebody say the evil word Broadcom?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, wow. That's now we don't have a ton of customers because of the size of our company and the size of our average customer. We don't have a ton of customers on VMware, but I'll tell you the answer, because of the limited nature of those customers, we just switched to Hyper-V. I mean, a lot of these customers are not needing VMware. They may have had it, and it's a great product, don't get me wrong. I mean, it does what it does, and it does it well, like we always talk about. But that one, the costs have really been a major factor for a lot of our customers and nonprofits. Yeah. Even the nonprofit price for it has gone through the roof, and the support's been horrible.
Yeah, we're of the same mindset. We didn't switch to Hyper-V. I did use Hyper-V for years, and then we did some stuff with VMware with a couple of clients, and then we moved them out. And what I found was right around the Broadcom acquisition timing, I was introduced to a company called Scale Computing. You may or may not know who they are. They're smaller, but they are doing HCI. It isn't cheap, but it is a lot cheaper than VMware. And then for all the ones that don't need that, I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there, open source going to Proxmox and having their paid support tier is actually very efficient. I mean, I've built a cluster that we're using in the data center. It's over that way, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, that we are reselling VMs to clients. And you can, the nice thing about the way that it's built is that you can limit permissions to exactly what the individual client needs. So you can give them a logon through Entra, they log on, they can see and modify their VMs, turn them on and off and reset them. And honestly, from a perspective of what we're doing, the software-defined networking is relatively new in it, but it does its job very well. It's hard to knock a $200 a year cost for support for the product when it is, again, it's very solid. It's worked really well for us.
It's cool software for sure.
Janice, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, just we got away from VMware about between 5 and 10 years ago. We just started moving people off of VMware to Hyper-V. It was much easier and more cost effective at the time.
Yeah, we found with Hyper-V the reason we didn't stick with it too long is the replication and clustering. I've used the cluster manager; it works well, more or less, but there were issues with it. And then anything for replications was just horrendous. They failed more often than they didn't, and this is a long time ago. Like I'm really not being very fair, but I do like the fact that it's a web interface for the other alternatives, so you don't have to log into a server to manage things. So again, from our perspective, having that what we've done has really worked out well for us, but it's definitely not necessarily a best practice. But it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work.
Yeah, and a big area that we've gone into is a lot of things are going into the cloud. And managing having full Azure network environments of multiple servers, firewalls, so on and so forth. So that's the next evolution to it from, forget the Hyper-V on site, we're going to the cloud. And then there's also the other cloud products, for smaller businesses like SharePoint and stuff like that, and keeping them secure and so on and so forth.
So I guess the summary to that was, Mark, if you can, run.
Very true. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for this Tech Talk. What keeps MSPs up at night? Addressing key risks and building resilience. I want to thank Jeff Putnam, Janice Malman, and Gord Hines for an absolutely fantastic conversation. And many, many thanks to the folks at Syncro for making this conversation possible. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody.